Hello everyone and welcome back. We've got scatter graphs today on the menu and it's drawing them. We've got a series of screencasts to do. We've got drawing, we've got correlation, and we've got interpreting the graphs. But this is the first one. Hopefully you'll find these really, really quick to go through and nice and easy. Starting hopefully with the easiest one. What is a scatter graph? Scatter graphs are used to represent and compare two sets of data, X and Y. By looking at the scatter graph, we can see whether there is any correlation or connection. So we're going to have ice cream sold here, and we can see that's our Y value because it's up. And then we've got our temperature of, sorry, I've got that around the wrong way. We've got our Y value, which is ice cream sold, and we've got our temperature, which is our X value because it's along the bottom. Now we can see here, this is a great example because as the temperature goes up, so does the number of ice cream sold. And that's really important. This is often what we see on these scatter graphs, is this positive correlation or negative correlation. And sometimes they throw in one that doesn't have any correlation at all. But we'll go over that at a later date. So let's go through our first example. We're going to start off with our height and our weight. So we can see our height is going to be our Y axis. And we've got our weight, which is our X axis. And all we're going to do is we're going to label up these points. We're going to always start with our X value and then go Y. Remember, go along the corridor before you go up or down the stairs. So our weight, first one's at 50, and we put a point at 150 on our graph, which is just here, isn't it? 50 and 150. Next is 55 and 160, so we put a point. So we go 55 and 160, put a point. We've got 55 and 170 on this occasion, so we go up to there. Then we've got 85, which is here, and we go all the way up to 180, which is just there. 60 and 150. And you'll find with these that they're called scatter graphs because, you know, you can go back and forth a lot of the time. So top tip is just to give them a little tick as you've done them so that you don't do it twice, but you'll probably work that out anyway. 95 and 190, so 95 is here, 190 is up there. And last but not least, we've got our 70 kgs and 175, which is right there. Now the next part is called putting a line of best fit. Now there's no hard and fast rule here other than trying to get this line so that it touches as many of these points as possible and possibly has one or two or three either side of the line, but as close as we can. So there's always an element of error or an element of, you know, personal choice or whatever. So this line does not need to go perfectly exactly where my line goes. Everyone's line will be a little bit different. But you can see here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 touching the line, and I've got one off and on the top, on the bottom, and one off on the top. That's kind of a good example because we're almost touching all the other points, but we've got one off either side. Okay, so now it's your turn to give this next one a go. Some tips, this is our X value this time because it's along the bottom. This is our Y value because it's up the top there. Plot all your points, do it nice and slowly, check all your work, then put a line of best fit where you perceive it to be, and your perception might be different than mine. But remember, as long as it's within a certain tolerance, then we're going to be okay. Come back and see if you've got it correct. Okay, everyone, so let's go now. Our first one was 30-35. Our next one was 60-55. And after that is 25 and 60, 80 and 95. 90, not 95. 50 and 45, 95 and 90. And 35 and 45. So that's where all your points went. Now, if you've got a point or two out, it might have just been that you just rushed it a little bit and you got your values mixed up. That's why it's really important that we go math score and we go across and we go up. And we do it nice and slowly and we tick off as we go. Now this is the line of best fit. This is quite a tough one. We've got this rogue point out here, okay, which is tough to deal with because some people might sort of go in here and go on no man's land. Well, remember, we've got to try and stick to as many of these points as we possibly can. I'm going to put my point just here. Now, I haven't actually touched that many, but what I have done is I've got nice and close to 1, 2, but I've got 1, 2, 3 below the line. Yeah, and I've got 2 just above the line. So I've gone there. Now, arguably it could have gone down a little bit more and got close to this point, but I wouldn't have wanted up any higher. I definitely wouldn't want it up any higher. So arguably I might have in future one put it down a little bit lower and gone through those 2 points there. But that's where I've decided to put it. Remember, there is that element of error, the element that we can work with. Okay, everyone, it is time for the quiz now. So take your time, make sure that you plot these points beautifully on the graph, and then come back and see if you got the right. Make sure you put your line of best fit as well. Away you go. So it's time now. Hopefully you had time to go through there and put your answers down, but I'm going to go through mine now. Draw the skater graph. I always do that. I forget to click it. It's there, but you knew what you needed to do anyway. All right, so we're going to draw this. So first point, we're obviously our P. This is our X values. This is our Y values. Was at 40 and 55. So we needed to put a point just there. Then we're at 60 and 75. So we put a point. Then we've got our 25, which is just here, and up to 35. 80 and 95 is there. 50 and 50. I like that number, 50-50. 90 and 85. And last but not least, we've got our 35 and 45. So line of best fit, and make sure it goes from, did I mention that earlier? Make sure your line of best fit goes from the Y axis all the way through, up through. We noticed that on the last 2, but make sure when you do yours, it goes through as well. And there we go. So I've got as many points as I possibly can. Touching 1, 2, touching. I've got 3 just out, but I've got two down below as well. If I had to move it up a little bit, it might have got too close to the other ones there. That's the reason why I put it where it was. Anyway, hopefully you've done fantastic. If you have, write a revision card. If you haven't, go back, go through slowly. I'm sure that you can do it. Remember, if you've done this graph stuff before, it should be second nature. Until next time, it's been a real pleasure helping you with your maths today. I hope you feel you've got a little bit better.